Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to this very special episode of the Joy School podcast. I'm Kristi Ling Spencer. I am so happy that you're here with me. And you may have noticed, if you listen to the show regularly, that this episode does not have an intro, and it also will not have an outro. We actually were not going to drop an episode this week because of the holiday. But I decided at the last minute I really wanted to connect with you all and record one for you anyway and just drop it raw and unfiltered. So here it is. I thought we would have a little bit of fun with it. Also, it really goes with the theme of the conversation that I want to have today, and that is slowing down, simplifying, and living seasonally. And I have been so inspired this last few weeks. So I am literally in the middle of the forest right now, recording this for you all. And I am not far from the new cabin, which I recently purchased. If you've been listening to the show, you've heard me talk about it. And we've been spending the summer here just in the middle of renovations and getting things done. And oh, of course, as to be expected, it's so much more work than I thought it was going to be. But it has been such a lesson in simplifying and slowing down and patience and also just enjoying the moment. I'm really just enjoying being in all of the chaos of the construction and the dust and everything else right now because I know that it's creating memories and I am looking forward to the result, but I am not in a rush for it, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've ever felt that way in your life, but sometimes you just enjoy the process of something, right? It's about the journey. And so I've been thinking a lot about this lately. And in my last newsletter, and if you're not on my newsletter list, so I have a newsletter. It's actually a digital magazine. It comes out every month and it's called Love Your Life. And I don't email bomb people on my list every other day. In fact, you'll hear from me at most maybe once, twice, three times a month, and that's it. And it's always with great value. I don't email my list for little things that, are going to interrupt your busy day that you are not going to be interested in. You know why? Because I don't love it when people do it to me. So I do my email list a little bit differently than some people do. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, but this is the way I choose to do it. Sort of going in line with one of the topics of today's show, which is simplify, right? And so in my last issue of my digital magazine, and if you'd like to get on the list to subscribe for that, it's free and you can go to my website, KristiLingSpencer.com, and there's all kinds of opportunities there to sign up for it. And you'll get a free class when you sign up for the subscription as well. So fun things over there. But in my last issue, I talked about living seasonally, and that is one of my personal goals right now. And it really resonated. I received so many messages back from people who were like, this is me too. Like, I'm feeling this so much. And what I mean by living seasonally is that it's really all about mindful pauses and savoring the unique characteristics of each season and being as present as possible in the moment. Because when we do this, when we actually pay attention to the seasons, time seems to slow down a little bit. The seasons last a little longer, it seems. They feel like they do anyway. And it just creates more treasured memories. When you connect with, let's say, whatever fruits or foods are in season, right? Vegetables that season, or when you connect with the outdoors and what's happening during that season, when you decorate your house for the season or for various holidays during the season, it really does add some joy to life, but it also really makes life feel like it's slowing down. And I'm not going to lie, I have not been perfect at this. In fact, I haven't been very good at it at all this past year. And I have noticed a huge difference. Everything has just kind of blurred together. I barely even remember last spring, like it zipped by. And being here in the mountains for this summer has really got me thinking about this because this summer went by in a flash. It is just about over as I'm recording this. And I'm like, wow, I almost feel like I didn't have a summer. Can you relate? And so I've been really thinking lately, I want to savor the last couple of weeks of summer here. We're going to go have a picnic on the lake. We're going to have some watermelon. We're going to have some cookouts. We went to an outdoor concert this last weekend that was so amazing. Under the pine trees and the stars here in the mountains, they had a tribute band to Tom Petty, who is one of my favorite musical artists of all time. And wow, I want to give them a shout out, by the way. This band is called Petty Party. And I thought the name was really clever. But wow, were they fantastic. They blew us away. They had the crowd cheering and dancing all under the stars, under the pines, up in the mountains. It was beautiful. You can find them on Instagram. Instagram, I think it's Petty Party Band. And I'm sure they have a website as well to keep an eye out where they are. And this is in California. They're probably just here, but anyway, I'm getting off into the weeds here, but I'm just talking about, enjoying the last couple of weeks of summer and summer activities, right? To really feel like it's not too late to feel like I had a summer. And so if you're listening to this and you've got a few days left, or even if it's the early few days of fall when it's still warm out, savor those moments because before we know it, the leaves are going to turn. It's going to start cooling off, which, by the way, to me is heaven. Fall is my favorite season, and I'm really looking forward to it. And so that's why I'm setting this intention now to live more seasonally in my life. I plan on celebrating even the smallest holidays a little bit more, decorating, baking. And this fall, I guarantee you, I'm going to be doing some pumpkin spice baking, banana breads, lighting candles, and just enjoying all the cozy things of fall. And there are so many things that go with that. And then when the winter comes, I'm looking forward to bundling up and sitting by the fire and enjoying some hot tea and just being present. And part of what makes this so magical is that it really gives you time to slow down and pause and think about your life and where you're at. And also, living seasonally, you can set goals each season. 4 times a year, you can sit down with your journal or your bullet pointed list or however you set your goals. And you can live quarterly or seasonally with your goals. So rather than doing them annually or a couple times a year, if you tie goals to the season, it kind of brings a little bit more magic to it. And that's sort of like living quarterly, which is a big concept in the business world. A lot of people live quarterly rather than annually, and it sort of breaks things down in more manageable chunks. So that's sort of another thing that goes along with living seasonally. And there are many spiritual practices in the world that live by something called the wheel of the year. And that is essentially a wheel, and there are beautiful artistic presentations of this if you Google it online. And there are many, many spiritual practices that go by it. But what interests me about it is that it really does just emphasize living by the seasons and living by the harvest and living by when the sun changes and the moon changes and the tides change and the weather changes. And that to me helps slow life down and just bring a little bit more magic. So I just love that concept. You can Google that if you're interested. But just in general, just paying attention and, like I said, decorating your house and celebrating, right? Celebrating each season, celebrate the moon phases. All of these things will bring a little whimsy and magic into life, but will also help us breathe a little bit and enjoy things. I don't ever want another season of my life to go by like a lightning bolt, right? I really don't like that feeling of, oh my gosh, it's over already. What just happened? you know, can you relate? So I wanted to share that. And that brings me to the second topic of today's episode, and that is just slowing down in general. I feel like these days, especially, so many of us are feeling so rushed all the time and feeling rushed to get things done that there's not even a deadline for. Rushing around the house, rushing through our workday, rushing through, things that would normally bring us pleasure, but yet we're rushing through them. And I am guilty of this as well. And I've just been really thinking a lot about it and wondering why is that and how can I be more intentional about slowing down? And I recently posted on Threads and also on Instagram a quote, and it really hit with a lot of people. And it said, rushing around all the time is a trauma response and is hard on the nervous system. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to be peacefully productive. There is enough time. You deserve to love your life. And I myself am really trying to stick to those words. I really wrote that quote for myself, but so many people related to it because sometimes we don't even pay attention to the fact that we're rushing up the stairs or we're rushing through our morning routine or we're rushing toward through getting a project done. And there are many things that come out of that, but what I mean when I say rushing around all the time is a trauma response. Now, I'm speaking from my own experience, but I think so many people can relate to this. So, when I was younger, I worked on a lot of deadlines, and also I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I've talked about this before on the show. And I think my tendency to people please when I was younger, and I still fall into that trap now and then, but I've become much more mindful about catching myself. But when you're people pleasing, you want to get things done really fast so you can go, look what I did, or it's done, it's checked off the list. But what happens when we rush through life is a few different things. First of all, we miss out on the joy of the moment, right? And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier when talking about living seasonally. But also, now this one's kind of funny, but true, and you may be able to relate. When we're rushing around, we can injure ourselves, right? How many times have I bumped my knee or kicked my toe or accidentally cut myself because I was rushing around? Bonk my head on a cabinet, whatever it is, or worse, right? Rushing around can lead to physical injury, in addition to sort of taking away from the joy of life. Because part of the joy of life is savoring the moments. And slowing down can really help us do that, as well as avoid unnecessary bangs and cuts and bruises, right? And so it's really just something to think about. And I can feel so many of you out there right now going, oh, yeah, I've totally bonked myself before when I was rushing around. And, for me, when that does happen, it's sort of a little reminder like, oh, it's time to slow down. There is no reason, Kristi, to be rushing around like this. And this is something I'm really, really working on. Now, the other thing that happens when we don't rush and we actually breathe into things and we realize that there is enough time and that it is perfectly okay to be peacefully productive, right? Because you can be productive and be at peace at the same time and go at a reasonable pace. There is always enough time. It's not going to be very often in your life that something is on fire or that there's an important deadline that absolutely has to be done. Okay. And those are rare occasions when maybe a little bit of rushing might be in order. But for the most part, most of the rushing we do is totally unnecessary and it really takes away from the joy and the peace in life. So true. So this is something I've been working on. And if this is you too, I invite you to join me in just sort of being more mindful about that and slowing down and adopting that term peacefully productive. Even write that on a little note and put it on your desk because it really does feel good. To me, those words feel good in my bones. And that's kind of how I want to live my life. All right, so the third topic of today's show, and all three of these really tie in together, and that is simplify. And I have to say, this has never been more present in my life than this summer because spending the summer in the mountains in a house that has no kitchen and no furniture, like I'm not even kidding, we're sleeping on a mattress on the floor and doing all these renovations. And we are cooking in a toaster that's plugged in and on the floor of one of the empty bedrooms and a microwave. That's basically what we have. Oh, and a coffee maker. Can't live without the coffee maker. But simplifying, and I'm living with a capsule wardrobe. I think I have three pairs of jeans and four or five tops and a few tank tops and a couple pairs of sneakers and some flip flops. And that's literally what's here and a baseball cap. And it has been so refreshing. I can't even tell you, like, so refreshing and so eye opening. And if you've never spent a season with a capsule wardrobe before, and this can be for guys or women or whatever your gender is, this is not gender specific. I know you see a lot of the women bloggers online doing capsule wardrobes, but I encourage everybody to try this. Pick out some of the things that speak to you the most for the season and create some outfits with them that are mix and match and pick out your few favorite shoes or whatever it may be for that season and put them all into an organized, space in your closet or on a clothing rack or whatever it may be. And then either put the rest away or put it in a separate closet or box it up for this season and just see how you do with it. It is really amazing how having less truly is more. And it's kind of mind blowing. And fall and winter isn't a great season to do this with because you don't need that much. A few cozy outfits, a few cozy sweaters, a jacket, maybe two, maybe a raincoat if you live somewhere where it rains a lot, a pair of boots, pair of sneakers, and you're good, right? And some cozy slippers. Not too much. Now, I'm sort of digressing here a little bit, but this is just one example of simplifying. So, another example is automating things in your life. And now, with AI rising to the surface in so many areas, there's going to be so many opportunities to automate things between AI and also technologies like smart home devices and things like that. Start just with one thing. And maybe it's just getting a smart plug for a light in your office so that you can vocally turn your light on and off or do it from an app. Or maybe it is getting rid of some of the stuff in your kitchen that is overflowing your drawers, right? Like, I think I've said this before, but nobody needs five spatulas. And so just simplifying, getting rid of things, paring down, and clearing clutter is so huge. Now, another thing to automate is paying off debt. And let me tell you, some of the best advice about money I ever received in my life that resonated with me. And when I implemented it, it absolutely worked. This is probably about 15 years ago or so. I had some debt coming out of some business things, and I wanted to get rid of it. And my friend Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor, who was such a wonderful mentor, said, just automate your debt. Put the payment for it on automatic on your bank account so that you don't have to think about it or look at it, because what that does is it automatically pays the debt off, but it also frees up the space for you to focus on making more money and creating more abundance in your life because you're not thinking about debt. If you automate it, you can literally just pretend it doesn't exist because it's getting paid off. So figure out however much time, let's say you have a card you want to pay off in 36 months, a credit card. So just figure out how much do I need to pay each month. And if there's interest on it, look for an opportunity maybe to lower the interest or transfer that balance to a different card that has lower interest. Take charge of your money. But if you have debt, automate it. That was the best advice that I got. Once I automated the payoff of that, it was gone in the exact amount of time I wanted it to be gone. And also during that whole time, I hardly thought about it at all. I was able to focus on moving forward in my life. So that was wonderful advice that came from the wonderful Bob Proctor. And, where else in your life can you automate or simplify, right? Or pare down? This is really something to think about. And it also does tie into living seasonally. I think that one of the biggest parts of living seasonally is also living simply. And that is such a big goal for me going forward in my life. Going forward in my life, I'm going to be all about less is more. And by the way, I'm going to be this way in my business as well. I've been going through a lot of transitions this last couple of months, and I'm currently remodeling my program, The Joy School, to make it simpler and more accessible for all of you. And for those of you who are currently members, I know you're enjoying the content, but the way you've received the changes that I've been speaking about, I can tell you're so excited about it too. So the Joy School doors are currently closed, but I will be announcing when they open again. And it is going to be simpler, more powerful, and more accessible to everybody. So I am so excited to share that with all of you. And it's going to be simpler for me too. Therefore, I am going to be able to put more time and energy into doing higher quality content for you all. So I'm so excited. So I really am taking this whole approach of living seasonally and slowing down and being peacefully productive and simplifying across all areas of my life. And I'm excited about it. And I just wanted to share from the heart with you all today that this is kind of where I'm at. I'm feeling great energy around it. And I wanted to share it with you so you can maybe relate and maybe implement some of these things into your life as well as we head into the fall season and then, of course, winter. And it is a time to rest. It is a time, just like the trees do, to let your leaves fall and to take a breath and just really slow down and savor life. All right, with that, that brings us to the section of the show I like to call Joy School Habits, where I share one small habit that can have a big impact on your life. So I love the word micro. And micro to me really sort of ties in with simplifying. It's something small that can have a big impact. And I've talked about that the fact that I love microgreens. I throw them on all my foods. And so I want to encourage you today to adopt one micro fitness move. Now, depending on what your ability is, be sure to check with your trainer, your professional, your doctor if you have any limitations. But for me personally, what has been so great is this past year, I wanted to incorporate more strength training into my routine. And I already do weights a couple of times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, and I am fairly active, but I wanted to add one thing each day that I could do that would just be a small thing that takes like 30 seconds, but have a great result. So I personally started doing 15 push ups each day. And I'm not perfect about it. Sometimes I skip a day here and there, but most days I get my 15 push ups in. And so I like to call this a micro fitness move. So pick something you enjoy doing and do 10, 15, 20, 25 of them each day. It literally takes a minute or less, and the compound effect of this can be tremendous. Like, think about what your booty would look like if you did 25 squats a day, right? 1 minute a day can really make a big difference. Now, this is not in replacement of whatever fitness routine you're currently doing, but this is an addition. It's like an enhancement. And if you're not doing much fitness at all and your life is really busy, this is a great way to just add a little bit more. A micro fitness move. Choose something that represents uh, something that makes you feel good, that's doable, that doesn't feel like, ugh, when you think about it, right? And another one I do sometimes is I'll throw in like 25 or 30 jumping jacks. And I'll just do those in the morning to get my blood flowing. And my husband laughs at me. He's like, I can hear you up there when I'm upstairs, but it takes like 30 seconds and my blood's flowing. It gets oxygen to my brain. And, maybe doing that once doesn't have a big impact, but doing it every day consistently can definitely have a great payoff, right? Not to mention, it can help you get your blood flowing. So pick one thing. I do my 15 push ups a day, and once in a while, I throw in those jumping jacks. And I've done that on top. I've stacked it with my other fitness stuff. And I'm telling you, I am noticing a difference. My arms are getting more toned. And also, it just mentally shifts my brain into that place of thinking about fitness, thinking about moving, thinking about my body. And momentum creates momentum. You might be surprised how this one tiny little habit of adding a micro fitness move to your day can inspire you to get even more fitness into your routine. All right, my friends, if you enjoyed this stripped down, unedited episode of the show, I encourage you to write a review on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite platform. The reviews really do help the show. They help it reach more people who might enjoy it. They help boost it in the algorithms. And I love hearing from you. I read the reviews and I appreciate them so much. And thank you to everybody who's left one so far. I can't emphasize enough how much this helps things like podcasts, books. If you love somebody who's a writer or a podcaster or a creator of any kind, reviews are golden. So thank you so much. And thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the last few days of summer. And I am wishing you the most beautiful fall ahead. And we're going to have a couple more episodes of the show before we wrap up this season. But just be thinking about what kind of remainder of summer and what kind of fall do you want to have ahead? Maybe even winter, start thinking ahead. But let's all live more mindfully, more seasonally. Let's slow down a little bit and let's just enjoy every moment. Much love, my friends. Remember, you have the power to create more amazing days, and more amazing days add up to a pretty amazing life. Have a beautiful week.